This is an epic movie you absolutely must watch. If you haven't seen it yet, you can't miss it. In the Elven kingdom where Amberle lives, there's a terrifying legend, the ancient Elcrys tree before you. Each leaf represents a demon that's been sealed away. Every year, the kingdom selects 7 chosen ones to protect the sacred tree. Amberle finally succeeded in her first attempt, but just as she was about to be crowned, the ancient tree suddenly responded after thousands of years of silence. It took her back to the battlefield of the Great War between elves and demons thousands of years ago, where bodies were piled high, and powerful demons were devouring them mercilessly. At the same time, a human who had been sealed for centuries was awakened from his slumber, and he was the last remaining druid in the 4 lands who knew magic. He was covered in mysterious markings, holding a secret artifact, and in the next second, it transformed into a sharp sword. Meanwhile, Amberle was plagued by relentless nightmares, leaving her disoriented, and she even drew the image of a demon with her own hands. When she returned to the tree that night, she saw a vision of herself killing her boyfriend, which terrified her. Her boyfriend arrived, trying to comfort Amberle, but she pushed him away and told him about the horrific vision she'd seen. But to her boyfriend, demons and magic were just legends passed down for thousands of years, something people wouldn't believe truly existed. Seeing that her boyfriend didn't believe her, Amberle pulled out her sword and threatened him to stay away, then fled the Elven kingdom, hoping to distance herself from him. Will traveled far to get life-saving medicine for his mother, only to be told that it was too late for her. She was holding onto her last breath just to see Will one last time. On her deathbed, she gave Will a pouch containing 3 strange blue stones. She told him, "These are elf stones, left to you by your father. Each one holds immense magical power." Like everyone else, Will didn't believe in magic, thinking his mother was delirious from illness. But his mother told him that although his father was seen as a madman by the world, he was truly a good man. With her last breath, she urged Will to find a druid and then passed away. With a heavy heart, Will buried his mother. He took out the stones she had given him and asked his uncle if he had seen them before. His uncle immediately looked terrified because he knew Will's father had died young because of those stones. Will dismissed it, even mocking that no one would really believe in magic. But his uncle suddenly became more serious, telling Will that although he didn't believe in magic, he knew for sure that demons existed in the world. He also knew how much suffering these stones had brought and urged Will to get rid of them and sever all ties with them. But Will couldn't forget his mother's last wish, so he set off alone to find the druid she spoke of, a pure-blooded elf. Amberle, and a half-elven, half-human Will, were being guided by destiny's hands to face the rising dark air. This was the land of trolls, and Will accidentally wandered into it. Bones were scattered everywhere, and if he wasn't careful, he could be hunted down at any moment. A giant hunting trap was suddenly sprung, and Will was instantly caught by the throat while his horse fled in fear. Without his horse, he was doomed. But then a giant creature appeared, ready to kill Will with a swing of its club. Just then, a flying sword struck the troll right in the skull, killing it instantly. It turned out to be a human named Eretria who saved him. She even invited Will to her place to clean up, but just as Will was about to accept, he suddenly fainted. Meanwhile, in the Elven kingdom, the sacred tree began to decay, and the king sought answers from the wise one, but the wise one admitted he didn't know the reason, as the sacred tree hadn't shed a single leaf in over 1,000 years. Suddenly, one of the leaves on the sacred tree fell, slowly drifting down before bursting into flames and disintegrating. At the same time, on the other side of the world, something terrible was happening. The seal on the Demon King began to weaken, the ground trembled, and the first Demon King finally descended. He raised his artifact and summoned massive stones, forming a protective barrier around him. As the first Demon King descended, a mysterious man arrived at the Elven palace. The guards tried to stop him, but he used magic to push them aside and entered the palace hall. The Elven prince and his pet prepared to fight him off, but as soon as he removed his cloak, the king was visibly moved. Because he was the last druid in the world who knew magic, the king honored him with the highest elven respect. But the prince, who didn't believe in magic, still tried to challenge him, only to be scolded by the king. He was there to tell the king that he was summoned by the sacred arts, and his awakening signaled that darkness was coming. They went together to the sacred tree, where Alanon's powerful elf stone sensed that the tree was about to wither, so he told the king to gather the elven army immediately, and that he needed to find another great wizard who was lost in the world. Will hadn't fully woken up when he was suddenly struck by a sword. The man wasn't a stranger, it was Alanon, who had just come from the palace, and he was the druid that Will was looking for. But Will realized that the Eretria who saved him, and the elf stones his mother had given him, were already gone. He had been tricked. Alanon intended to take Will to a place called the Druid's Keep, which was the center of the Four Lands, the sacred ground of magic. Thousands of years ago, only the elite among the Four Lands had the chance to study magic there, and this half-elf, Will, had the other half of his bloodline from the powerful Shannara family. The Shannaras were the most powerful wizards among the four races, born of magic, with magic running hot in their veins, and he was the last Shannara in the world. They arrived at the ancient, abandoned magical sanctuary, seeking a book called the Codex of Piranha, which recorded the origins, history, and teachings of all magic in the world. Alanon stopped before a massive monolith because he felt the magic surging beneath it, but Will still didn't believe in the existence of magic. To him, all the tales of magic were just bedtime stories passed down through generations. He saw the serious look on Alanon's face, and he almost wanted to laugh. But right then, the last druid in the Four Lands who knew magic, Alanon, finally began to perform his spell. Magical energy in the castle began to stir, leaving Will momentarily stunned. Then, the ancient books lifted off the ground, floating in the air as magical power gathered in Alanon's hands, and then blasted towards the monolith. The mysterious markings on his body started glowing as the monolith shattered under his magical force, revealing the Codex of Piranha. This was the first time Will had witnessed magic, and his eyes widened in shock. The Codex successfully predicted the withering of the Elcrys, the crumbling of the earth, and the descent of demons from hell. As the Elcrys withers, it will give birth to a single crimson flower within it, which will yield a seed of hope. One of the 7 chosen elves must take this seed to safe hold and cast it into the bloodfire. Once it takes root, the Elcrys will be reborn. Meanwhile, the second leaf of the Elcrys began to wither, and at the world's end, the energy of the Demon King's stone circle surged. He muttered incantations, causing magic to ripple through the ground, forming yet another terrifying demon. The Demon King's brutal slaughter was about to begin, and their first target would be the chosen who might succeed in restoring the Elcrys. Elsewhere, Amberle's boyfriend went to the Elcrys, thinking about the prophecy that foretold his death and Amberle's escape. But at that moment, Amberle miraculously appeared before him, filling him with joy. Just then, a sword pierced his body, and Amberle's prophecy came true. But what they hadn't realized was that the Amberle who killed him was actually a demon in disguise. When Alanon returned to the palace with the Codex, he found that all 7 chosen, except for the fleeing Amberle, had been killed. As the third leaf slowly fell, Alanon had a sharp premonition that Amberle was about to face great danger. Will discovered from Amberle's letter that she was the king's sister and Alanon's former lover, but none of this escaped the Demon King's attention. As the third leaf fell, the first fury awoke from hell. As Alanon and Will braved mountains and rivers to find Amberle, the fury hunting her was also closing in. Just as the fury was about to deliver a fatal blow to Will and Amberle, Alanon intervened. But no one noticed that Alanon was already seriously injured. As they rushed back to the palace, Alanon could finally go no further. He told Will to leave him in the nearest druid cave and hurry with Amberle back to the palace. However, Will took Amberle to the nearby Silver River instead, knowing that the riverbed's mud had strong healing properties. Meanwhile, Eretria, who had stolen Will's elfstones, was in trouble. She was captured by none other than her own leader, the head of the human rovers. Eretria was a rover, a group scorned by the elves, forced to commit unsavory acts to survive after the elves took human lands. Her leader planned to sell Eretria to another tribe, but to prove her loyalty, Eretria handed over the elfstones she had stolen from Will. The leader was overjoyed because he understood the value of those 3 stones and their owner. He promised her that if she captured Will for him, he would fulfill her every wish. Meanwhile, as Will and Amberle traveled toward the Silver River, Will revealed his Shannara bloodline to Amberle. This made Amberle see him in a new light because she knew the Shannaras were the greatest rulers who had united the 4 lands with just 1 magic sword and 3 blue elf stones. While talking, they arrived at the river, and Will dove in to collect the healing mud from the riverbed. But when he resurfaced, Amberle was mysteriously gone. Returning to the shore, he found Amberle had been kidnapped by none other than Eretria, the rover who had stolen his elfstones. Her only goal was to capture Will and deliver him to her leader. Hoping to earn her freedom, Will told her that demons had already descended and that he needed to protect Amberle and return to the palace immediately. But how could such a group believe him? The leader demanded Will reveal the secret of the elfstones. But just then, a strange howl echoed, sending chills down everyone's spine. Then, a fury suddenly appeared in the sky. causing everyone to flee in panic. As the Fury prepared to attack Amberle, the elf stones in Will's hands suddenly glowed blue, and the powerful Shannara blood within him began to boil. Will, seemingly possessed, rushed forward to shield Amberle from the Fury. The elf stones in Will's hand flared up, making it impossible for the Fury to approach. Magic flowed through his mortal body, and as the energy built up, a powerful burst of magic erupted toward the Fury with an explosive force in the night sky. The intense magical energy nearly overwhelmed Will, and he collapsed. At the same time, a strange event occurred in the nearby Druid cave. The dying Druid was suddenly surrounded by points of energy, waking him from his slumber. The scattered energy gathered and entered his body, rapidly healing the wounds inflicted by the Fury. Amberle, trying to protect the unconscious Will and the elf stones, was about to be killed by the rover leader when All-Anon, sensing the magic, finally arrived. They reached the wasteland, where All-Anon performed a Druid's resurrection ritual on Will, and soon after, Will woke from his deep sleep. They had to return to the palace immediately, but on their way, they witnessed the demon slaughter of a village, sparing neither humans nor livestock. As Will was overcome with nausea, he heard noises coming from the warehouse. When they went to investigate, they discovered an elf imprisoned inside. Seeing the kingdom's citizens suffering from the demon's attack, Amberle wanted to take Boy back to the palace to heal, but All-Anon refused. Even All-Anon, with his powerful magic, couldn't read the imprisoned elf's soul, making him feel uneasy. But Amberle insisted on bringing him back to the palace. Amberle, having fled the kingdom without permission, was about to face the judgment of the Elven Council for breaking her vow to protect the Elcrys. Before leaving, Will tried to comfort Amberle, who had lost her family, but as soon as he touched her, he saw the truth of Amberle's impending death. He was, in fact, a great prophet lost among men, so he sought out Will and asked him to stay by Amberle's side. Will stormed into the Elven Council but was ruthlessly expelled by the prince. Just then, All-Anon suddenly spoke up. According to Elven law, no one may touch a member of the royal family. The female commander, startled, instantly stopped, but the prince mercilessly mocked, saying he was no royal, merely a bastard of a criminal. All-Anon then revealed to everyone present that he was a descendant of the Shannara bloodline. The revelation shook the council to its core. The king immediately acknowledged his noble lineage, and All-Anon went on to explain the existence of the Demon King and magic, and that Amberle's escape was fated. Now that she's back, only she can save the Four Lands as one of the Seven Chosen. The words of the Shannara family carry immense weight in the traditions of the royal court, and in this moment, they all silently accepted Amberle's return. She reached the center of the Elcrys, and its roots slowly extended toward her, producing a stunning flower. She was about to face the Elcrys' test. Returning once more to the ancient battlefield where the four races fought the demons, corpses were piled high, and her boyfriend's phantom appeared. He tried to kill Amberle, but when she turned around, another person was standing there. It was Will, who urged her to kill him so that she could pass the Elcrys' test and obtain the seed. Amberle hesitated, as these were the people she loved most, but reality was cruel. The Elcrys was testing whether she would do whatever it took to complete her mission. With relentless strikes that overwhelmed her, she finally delivered a fatal blow. Will was killed, and she passed the Elcrys' test, and the tree finally bore fruit. When she came out with the fruit, she couldn't even look Will in the eye, but just then, an elven sentinel at the door behaved oddly. He watched everyone leave and then used a powerful demon stone to report everything that had happened to the Demon King. The Demon King's orders were clear: kill the last chosen one who guards the Elcrys. If that happened, no one could revive the Elcrys, and their power would never be restrained by the tree again. Meanwhile, Eretria was being blackmailed by her leader to sneak into the Elven Palace and steal the stones for him, or he would kill her. Reluctantly, she agreed, disguised herself as a maid, and easily infiltrated the palace. She found Will's room. Knowing that Will was a good person, she played on his emotions, sharing her tragic backstory to gain his sympathy. Then the two were silent, engaging in unspeakable acts. When Will woke up, he realized he had been tricked again, as the magical stones in Eretria had vanished without a trace. As she was about to leave, she ran into Amberle in the hallway. Amberle chased her, and Eretria fled. Meanwhile, Will, whom Amberle had brought back, ran into Amberle's maid. He had a vision of the maid's impending death, so he tried to warn her not to go upstairs, but the maid was spooked by Will's strange behavior. She ran away, and Will chased after her, desperate to save her. But at that moment, the demon disguised as Eretria blocked Amberle's path. Just as it was about to kill the last chosen one, the frightened maid accidentally stepped in front of her. At the last second, Will caught up and tackled the demon, saving the maid. The demon quickly retreated, transforming back into the form of an elven sentinel in the palace. Eretria was still unaware that she had been framed for the assassination of a royal. As she was about to escape, she was struck down by the female commander and knocked unconscious. When she awoke, she was faced with an unforgivable death sentence. Will went after her to retrieve his magical stones, but Eretria told him that although she was a thief, she had never killed anyone. Naive Will chose to believe her once again. He went to Alanan to express his doubts, but Alanan had already seen through everything. The entire palace believed Eretria was the assassin, which was exactly when the real demon let down its guard. Amberle wanted to set out safely to find a new safe hold for the Elcrys, but first, they had to find the Demon King's spy hidden among them. Alanan quietly stayed close to Amberle, waiting for the demon to make another move. Sure enough, it transformed into Will's form and approached Amberle. Just then, Alanan appeared and killed the demon instantly, but as the guards were preparing to burn the body, it unexpectedly came back to life. And so, led by the Druid, an 8-person team set out on an epic journey. At night, the second prince approached the king, but when the king came before him, he was met with a cold blade. The king couldn't understand why his son would kill him. Not realizing it was a changeling's trick, the changeling killed him and took his place. Just as 10 years earlier, when dwarves attacked the Elven palace, Amberle's father fought to protect the king, ultimately being slain by the dwarves. They captured the dwarf and imprisoned him for life in the dark palace dungeon, but with the demons resurging, the continent was facing an unprecedented crisis. Wherever they went, they slaughtered all living beings indiscriminately. The second prince wanted to gather an army to fight back, but the king refused, saying their greatest duty was to protect the Elcrys. If they lost the Elcrys, it wouldn't just be a few demons, they would face an entire demon army. At that time, no amount of elven soldiers would make a difference. The third prince secretly approached his brother's killer and informed him that the Demon King had returned to the world. This greatly shocked the already gray-haired dwarf, and he agreed to set aside all racial hatred and lead the prince to the Breakline Mountains, where no elf had ever ventured. Will was a great prophet who could see people's fates the moment he touched them, but his tribe and even his parents saw him as an outcast. Kind-hearted Amberle took him in, and from that moment on, he swore to protect her with his life. Alanan brought him to the Elcrys, because by now, the only connection they had left to Amberle was the tree. Perhaps Will's prophetic powers could link to the Elcrys and help them find Amberle. But when he touched the Elcrys, he saw the dead Amberle and the victorious Demon King, Dagdamor, and something even more bizarre happened. Dagdamor noticed him, proving just how terrifying the Demon King's power was. Dagdamor effortlessly trapped Will in a cage. Will's eyes began to glow with a magical light, and as a leaf fell, he realized his fate. Meanwhile, Amberle and her companions finally arrived at a city, but to their surprise, there wasn't a single person on the walls. The general sounded the horn to have the soldiers open the gates, but they were met only with the severed heads of the guards, bound together. As the gates swung open, a 10-meter-tall troll suddenly appeared before them. The city had fallen, and a massive demon charged toward them, shaking the earth and sending the horses into a panicked retreat. To avoid being wiped out in one swoop, they split into 2 groups and ran for their lives. Will cut his hand. Using his blood to attract the Demon King's attention, they lured the Demon King into a swamp, then set the thick swamp gas on fire, burning the Demon King alive. Just then, the dwarf finally led the Elven prince to the dwarf homeland, only to find the corpses of his people. Feigning to follow the dwarven tradition, he prayed for them, but then he found a knife on one of the bodies and took the Elven prince hostage. Escaping alone, the two stood there, unsure of what to do, when the dwarf suddenly returned, because just ahead was the Breakline Mountain, where he had seen the Demon King's army, poised to strike once the Elcrys completely withered. The prince released the dwarf leader because, at that moment, the 4 lands had a common enemy, the Demon King. This act laid the foundation for an alliance between the elves and the dwarves. Meanwhile, in the Elven palace, the changeling that killed the king and took his form was searching for a powerful weapon. It was the Witch King's sword, sealed within the Elven palace. He deceived the second Elven prince, telling him it was a powerful weapon against the demons. While Alanan said nothing, the reason was simple. Alanan had already allied with the Demon King. The foolish prince believed the lie and immediately set off to find the weapon. As he passed Alanon's room, he heard the maid's terrified scream. The maid had just come to visit Will, but Will suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed Alanon, pulling him into a powerful prophetic vision, but the vision had already been controlled by the Demon King. Alanon tried to resist, but the vision was too strong, and the Demon King within it was terrifying. Under attack from both sides, Alanon's defenses collapsed, and the Demon King stole most of his soul. Losing control, Alanon attacked the maid. The second prince arrived just in time, diverting the Demon King's focus and giving Alanon a moment to breathe. Alanon shouted at them to flee, because the Demon King could kill them with a mere thought. This only made the second prince more certain that Alanon had betrayed them, so they headed to the forbidden area of the palace and found the switch to the forbidden door. As the door slowly opened, the Witch King's sword appeared, arriving at the palace. The weakened Alanon still hadn't realized that the king was actually a demon. The deceived prince took the opportunity to stab Alanon with the Witch King's sword. With the second thrust, Alanon disintegrated into nothingness, while Amberle and her group, in search of safe hold, were being pursued by the still-alive Troll King. They followed their scent, with the group walking along a narrow icy path, where any misstep could send them plummeting into an abyss. No one dared to let their guard down as they reached a bend. If their memory served, the passage to the ancient human stronghold should be nearby, but the cold, hunger, doubt, and exhaustion led them to stop. At last, they pushed through the final bend and discovered a fortress connecting to the ancient world. They only knew that over 2,000 years ago, during ancient times, humans had invented something called the atomic bomb. One day, they were suddenly detonated, and everything in sight was consumed by searing heat, leaving no living being to survive. As the heat faded, it marked the end of a civilization and the close of an era. 1,000 years later, a new magical continent composed of the four lands emerged, and today they were passing through the stronghold connecting to the ancient human ruins, heading to where the humans of the 21st century once lived. But just then, the demon pursued them. The nearly defeated Druid reappeared in the Druid's cave, trying to muster his last bit of strength to activate the healing spell, but the power of the Witch King's sword was too great, and he failed. But just then, an old man appeared, his master. For 300 years, Alanon had devoted himself to saving the four lands and protecting them from the Demon King, only to face betrayal again and again. He was ready to move on to another world and asked the old man to take him away from this one, but the old man told him he still had one more task. He raised his hand slowly, and Alanon's wounds began to heal at an incredible rate. The old man's forehead glowed brightly, and Alanon was fully restored once more. He now held a mysterious staff, allowing him to see the demise of the last royal lineage. Meanwhile, in the palace, the false king was sending two elven princes to their doom. Having found the Demon King's weapon, he instructed the princes to use the powerful artifact to assassinate the Demon King. The princes knew it was a futile mission, but as an imperial command, they had no choice but to obey. When they finally reached the Breakline Mountain, where the Demon King Dagdamor resided, the Demon King's army had vanished without a trace. They first found Will's elven prophet spirit, but it was under the Demon King's control, and it snarled continuously at them. Then the Demon King Dagdamor finally appeared, looking at the weapon in the prince's hand, mocking the elves' ignorance. "Your king is dead, and this artifact will only make me stronger." Hearing the news of his father's death, the third prince charged forward to avenge him. But what kind of overwhelming power was this? With just a wave of the staff, the prince was left defenseless. The second prince swung the Witch King's sword, ready to strike, but as soon as the Demon King Dagdamor raised his hand, the sword was summoned directly to him. With a slight gesture, the second prince's body was pulled toward the Demon King, who then mercilessly impaled him with the sword. Just as the Demon King turned to kill the last of the royal bloodline, the Druid finally arrived. The resurrected Alanon had become immensely powerful, pushing the Demon King back several meters. At the same time, he created a strong magical barrier between the Elven Prince and the Demon King, preventing the Demon King from harming the prince. Will's soul was also revived by the powerful magic the Druid performed. Returning to the palace, the prince learned that the current king was an imposter, and with the Druid's help, he killed him once more. Meanwhile, just as Amberle and the others were about to escape, a troll swung a massive axe at them. Will quickly unleashed his magic, but seeing the situation worsen, the human leader cut the rope, sending all three of them and the Demon King tumbling into the snowy mountains below. After some time, Will finally awoke to find the unconscious Troll King beside him. He went in search of the two girls who had fallen with him, but suddenly a boy lunged at Will, only to be easily subdued. The boy turned out to be an elf who had just had one of his ears cut off by an elven hunter, and his friend had also been captured. distrustful of everyone, Will showed his own ears to reassure him, worried that the two women might have been captured by the Elven hunters. They snuck into the hunters' territory to scout. There, they found Amberle's sword, revealing that the two women had been searching for Will after the fall. But when the Elven hunters found them, Amberle stumbled while fleeing and had to leave the sword behind. The Elven hunters realized her royal lineage from the weapon. If a regular elf seer could feed them for a day, an ear from someone like Amberle could keep them comfortable for months. They rushed back to their camp to gather all the hunters to capture Amberle. Before leaving, the leader grabbed a piece of food, which was actually the ear that had just been cut from the Elven boy. Seeing his own ear about to be eaten, the boy couldn't hold back any longer and charged out, but he was no match for the man, and as his other ear was about to be cut off, Will stealthily attacked from behind, saving him. However, the friend the Elven boy had mentioned turned out to be a giant dragon with a bird's beak. Meanwhile, Amberle and the other woman accidentally fell into an ancient hotel built by humans, where a grand banquet seemed to have been interrupted by sudden war, freezing everything in time like a butterfly trapped in amber. The place was well preserved, but just then, the Elven hunters arrived. Using the darkness to their advantage, the women killed two enemies, took their ropes, and prepared to escape. But then they found a newspaper on the wall of the human room. The image on the paper matched the Elcrys prophecy of the safe hold, and the map beside it might help them locate it. At that moment, the Elven hunter leader found them, and just as one girl was about to be killed, Will suddenly appeared and knocked out the hunter leader. The rescued Elven boy turned out to be a windwalker, and a dragon was about to help them escape when an arrow from the hunter leader struck Eretria down. The other hunters soon arrived, and unable to help, they had no choice but to flee. They entered troll territory, where a group of humans lived. The girl who had been captured was about to be sold. In the years that followed, humans, now too weak to reclaim their land by force, lived like stray dogs, caught between the powerful elves, trolls, and dwarves. To survive in troll territory, they negotiated, sacrificing captured elves or purchased humans to the trolls in exchange for temporary peace. The humans drugged the girl and treated her wounds so she would be alive to be sacrificed. Hoping to gain a place of safety, they dreamed of reclaiming human civilization one day, but the fragile peace with the trolls led them to create a terrifying weapon. As a wanderer, Eretria had never seen such a horrifying device. She told the man about the Demon King's terror and their mission to find the safe hold. The man revealed that 3 explorers had once found the place, but only one returned, and he had gone mad. He showed the girl human inventions like diesel engines, electricity, movies, and music, which deeply fascinated her. But just then, Amberle and Will arrived. To conceal their elven identities, they disguised themselves, but the humans quickly figured them out. As they were about to be sacrificed to the trolls, Eretria appeared with a gun and killed the troll, throwing the humans into a panic. Before long, a large group of trolls gathered, slaughtering all the humans. The new humans arrived at the 21st century human ruins. The Elcrys had guided them here to find the safe hold to stop the Demon King. The faded letters on a dilapidated sign became clear when Will added 2 missing letters, revealing that this was indeed the safe hold. Following the direction indicated, they found an underground passage, where they discovered a troll nest. Luckily, the trolls were asleep, so they quietly sneaked past them, hiding in the pipes above. But strangely, the symbols all over the troll's nest matched one on Eretria's back. They finally reached their destination, where Eretria felt a sense of déjà vu. The books scattered on the steps seemed to contain strange prophecies. What did the saint and the apocalypse mean? Suddenly, the girl's eyes rolled back, and she seemed to see through space and time, witnessing a woman cradling a baby. Someone told her that her blood was the key, her body the vessel. Then something strange happened. A burning sensation began to spread across Eretria's body, leaving burn marks wherever it touched. The marks formed a peculiar pattern, and Eretria felt her body fill with power. She was the Harbinger, without a doubt, and Amberle was the saint mentioned in the book. Following the Harbinger's guidance, they arrived at another ruin where the statue of a woman holding a baby stood. The stained glass here matched Amberle's vision exactly. She positioned Eretria on the right and Will on the left, and the ground began to glow with magical energy, revealing a strange golden symbol. Suddenly, haunting voices echoed through the ruins, and 2 women appeared, part demon, part angel. They were the guardians of the blood and fire, skilled at manipulating the goodness and evil within people's hearts. It didn't take long for the 2 girls to start turning against each other, forgetting the reason they had come. Encouraged by the guardians, Eretria attacked Amberle but was accidentally injured. But at that moment, her blood began to float in the air, moving toward a strange device nearby, and the girl snapped out of it. Indeed, the Harbinger's blood was the key to unlocking the power of the blood and fire. Even the sinister guardians were stunned, realizing she was a descendant of Armageddon. As the Harbinger's blood flowed into the blood and fire, the door opened fully, welcoming the saint. Just as Amberle was about to enter, the guardians tried to stop her again. Will used his elf stones to unleash powerful magic, destroying them. Amberle hesitated with every step because she didn't know what fate awaited her. As Amberle entered the ritual circle, Eritrea, weakened by blood loss, fainted, and Amberle disappeared as the circle vanished. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the palace. The foolish ministers still doubted magic, and the new king was imprisoned for trusting the Druid. They planned to face the Demon King with the Elven army alone, but the new king had foreseen this. He had already sent for the dwarf army, who were deeply moved by his previous kindness. They soon arrived, helping the prince reclaim his throne. At the same time, a druid even more powerful than All-Anon was awakening within the Four Lands. Just as the last leaf of the Elcrys fell, the final barrier imprisoning the Demon King Dagdamor broke down completely. The Demon King's army, spread across the mountains, was now ready, and with a command from the Demon King, they marched toward the Silver City where the Elcrys stood. In the safe hold, deep within the blood and fire, there was a serene sea. In the distance stood a woman in white. She was none other than the kind mother of Amberle, the saint. The mother told her that the seed was actually within them, and only when they decided to sacrifice themselves would the Elcrys bloom again. It turned out that their long journey had been to seek this one answer. Will used magic to revive Eritrea. She once again sacrificed her blood to reopen the passage to the blood and fire for Amberle. Amberle finally returned, and they prepared to head back to save the Four Lands. But unfortunately, they were discovered by trolls. As the trolls closed in, Eritrea stayed behind to hold them off, giving Will and Amberle a clear path to escape. After a heartfelt farewell, the two raced back home. Meanwhile, the Demon King's army was marching in perfect formation toward the Silver Keep. Where the Elcrys stood, the palace horn sounded, signaling the start of the battle. When Will and Amberle finally returned, the palace was already under siege. They hoped nightfall would give them cover to slip past the Demon King's guards and enter the palace, but their scent gave them away. The moment the demons found them, Will unleashed a powerful spell, shattering the demons to pieces, but this also exposed them completely. As more demon guards surrounded them, the Druid arrived with the dwarves. The dwarves' flying blades instantly wiped out all the demons. When they reached the Elcrys castle, they found it already under attack by the Demon King and his forces. Seeing the returning saint, the Demon King moved to kill her, but the Druid fought to protect them both. Engaging the Demon King in a fierce battle, the fight was intense, with even the mighty Demon King unable to gain the upper hand. Taking advantage of the battle, the two slipped into the Silver Keep to revive the Elcrys, but just as the Druid was defeated, the Demon King broke in. Sensing danger, Will stood to fight while Amberle rushed to complete her final mission. As they struggled, the Elcrys slowly began to revive the rotten branches healing and the withered leaves growing back. Fueled by magical energy, the Demon King grew weaker, and the injured Druid seized the moment, beheading him. With the Demon King's death, his army was wiped out, but the boy waiting by the Elcrys for his beloved to return saw no sign of her. He quickly mounted his horse and raced back to the safe hold to rescue the human girl who had been captured by the trolls to save them. The girl was brought before the troll leader, who surprisingly removed his mask. Could the demon war really be over? The Witch King's sword had appeared in the prophet boy's hand. He was the most powerful druid on the surface, and at the same time, the newest and most powerful Demon King.